Hello, once again. Welcome and welcome back. My name is Eric. This channel is called Report and Opine. I am here with a Wednesday update. Now that, Super Tuesday Light is behind us and the establishment props up Joe Biden, the 2020 Democrats all rally behind him. Of course, still no word from Obama or Hillary, but it's becoming abundantly clear, crystal clear, that Joe Biden is not physically or mentally fit to do this job. Now, it's dementia or Alzheimer's or senility or whatever it is. The rumor has it that they want him to sit in the next debate. And outside of the fact that he's mentally falling apart, he's also completely corrupt for decades and creepy with women and children. Now, the creepiness, I don't even want to talk about in this video. We can just sort of attribute that to his old school kissing baby style of politics. And I can sort of see why people liked him at one point. Some old footage of him resurfaced, of him really sort of shooting it straight and telling the truth. But of course, today, the truth is a far-right conspiracy racist hoax. So he doesn't even want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And some of the stuff he said, we can debate on whether it's racist or sexist or whatever it might be. But you can't look at something said in the late 70s with a 2020 lens, all right? And it's just, no matter how you slice it, the man can barely complete an English sentence. His corruption is through the roof, and he's creepy to boot, okay? So again, there will be loads of links in the description. Please go ahead and check them out. And what I have here is a very short list of gaffes and corruption, all right? So just recently, as of a day or two ago, he was out in Detroit or out in Michigan campaigning, and he got into it with a factory worker, told him that he was full of it, threatened to smack somebody, and shushed his campaign staff worker. And these hits are going to keep on coming. That's just the most recent. As we get closer, they're gonna increase exponentially. Take that one to the bank, all right? But most famously, I think, is his corn pop story, which was taken from a 2017 ceremony where they dedicated a pool to him that I guess he used to be a lifeguard at or something. He talked about corn pop and roaches and a knife fight and a chain gang, all sorts of weird things. None of it made sense. We don't know if corn pop is real, but it doesn't really matter. Joe Biden still thinks that we don't have the internet, I think, and he doesn't know how to text. We'll get to that, okay? But he also had his dentures nearly fall out on the debate stage, and then his eye filled up with blood on the debate stage as well. He was also caught in his 1988 presidential campaign plagiarizing from a politician out in Europe, I believe, so look into that. He also told a lie multiple times of him getting arrested while he was trying to visit Nelson Mandela in South Africa, and that just didn't happen, okay? He's also on multiple occasions forgotten the name of his former boss and former president of the United States, Barack Obama, right? It's like you worked for him for 8 years. He still won't endorse you, but you can't even remember his name, all right? Then we're getting into the more recent stuff where, of course, he was on the debate stage back in July. And he said, go to Joe 30330. And as I mentioned, he doesn't know how to text. So what he meant to say was, text the word Joe to 30330 if you want to help my campaign. But he couldn't get it out, okay? And then back in August, he said that there was 3 genders, which is the wrong answer either way, because if you're trying to appease the left, they would just say it's infinity genders because, they look at gender just sort of like a style choice, like goth or punk or, indie, but to them, there's a million genders, so 3 is the wrong answer. And to the right, 3 is still the wrong answer. Go figure, Joe. Then he thought that he was vice president during the Parkland shooting that happened in 2018. You were not vice president then, Joe, okay? Then he mixed up Vermont with New Hampshire, he mixed up Iraq with Afghanistan, and he mixed up Iowa with Ohio, which for anybody else on the planet wouldn't be a big deal, but you're running for president, you should probably know these things, okay? Also in New Hampshire, he said to a crowd of people that he was not going nuts, which to me is a sure sign that he is in fact going nuts. He also said back in August that poor kids were just as smart as white kids. And again, I don't think Joe Biden is a racist. I think he just doesn't know what's going on because he's 80 years old and he is not equipped to be president. And Bernie Sanders is actually, I forget who's older, whatever, 77 and 78, it's like we're splitting hairs at this point. But imagine how bad you have to be at your job to be losing to this guy. And I'm not even halfway through this list just yet, okay? He also said that we choose truth over facts, which is completely inaccurate because over on the left, truth and facts are right-wing racism, okay? He also said on a debate stage in September, when asked a question about reparations, he pivoted to education and said that parents should keep the record player on. He said that in 2019. He could have said, hand them the iPad and let them play Jewel Crusher or something, but nope. He said turn the record player on. All right? He also, of course, this list is short, but his list of actual gaps is really quite long, so stick with me. He said that 150 million people have been killed in gun violence since 2007, which is inaccurate. Half the population, Joe, has not been killed in gunfights since 2007. It's just wrong, but nobody mentioned it to him. Nobody said, Joe, not quite. Nope, just kept on trucking. He said he was running for the Senate, which is obviously wrong. He did run for Senate back in 1988 or something, or it was before that because he ran for president in 1988. Okay? He also fumbled he fumbled trying to recite the Declaration of Independence. Now, I can't recite the Declaration of Independence either, but I'm also not running for president. We hold these truths to be self-evident, and you know the thing. You know how it goes. Vote for Joe. All right? And he also called Super Tuesday, Super Thursday, and then in a victory speech on what was actually Super Tuesday, he confused his wife with his sister and was attacked by some milk protesters and protected by his wife, his sister, and his female campaign staffer, okay? So that's just a little taste of the gaps, a little taste. The amended version, the short list. And everybody on the left can probably just write this off like, that's Joe being Joe. It's part of his charm. But this corruption stuff is not part of the charm. Not charming at all, okay? So most famously is his son Hunter's dealings in Ukraine with Burisma Gas Company, where he was on the board, not knowing anything about natural gas, didn't even speak the language, but was somehow magically on the board of directors while Joe was the point person to policy in Ukraine. So that's the elephant in the room. But there's loads more. This goes deep, right? So Joe, back in 2005, voted, created, wrote this bill called the 2005 Bankruptcy Abuse Act, which made it very difficult for citizens to declare bankruptcy, and some would say this had a huge part in the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis. Now, I'm no economist, so I can't say for sure, but it doesn't look good, Joe. Also, your son was working for one of the banks that donated to multiple Senate campaigns you had. So there seems like there's a little bit of a conflict of interest there. Also, Hunter worked for Amtrak while you were a senator in Delaware also. So Amtrak being taxpayer funded, Hunter got assigned to the board of directors there, claiming his work at the banks was experience enough to get him on the board at Amtrak while Joe is senator in Delaware. It all just seems a little bit fuzzy, right? And then, as long as we're on the topic of credit cards and bankruptcy and fraud, a very fun fact is that his niece, Caroline Biden, was arrested back in 2017 on charges of credit card fraud, stealing $110,000 in some weird credit card scheme that she was doing. And she was also arrested in 2013 for what we're calling a dust-up with one of her roommates down in Trifecta or the West Village or something. And those charges were completely dismissed and sealed. So while her uncle was actually vice president, all charges dropped, swept under the rug. When her uncle used to be vice president, she gets probation for stealing $110,000. Then we've got his brother James Biden, who somehow managed to get a job at Hillstone International Construction Company, which inked deals to build houses out in Iraq. They also had deals here in the United States, Puerto Rico, and Mozambique, government-funded contracts while Joe Biden was vice president, okay? So that also seems a little bit strange. I mean, if you want to get a job in the private sector like Hunter, you can just say, oh, nothing to do here. But then you get him into the government-funded contracts. That's even more fishy, Joe, okay? Then back to a little bit of Hunter Biden news is that he also worked for a company called Burnham Financial, where his business partner named Devin Archer was arrested in 2016 for trying to scam a poor Indian tribe, what is it called? The Oglala Indian tribe, out of millions of dollars. Now, these numbers are all over the place. Some people say it was 10 to 20. It goes all the way up to $60 million. So again, check some of the links in the description and let me know what you think about it. And Hunter didn't go down for this, but this was his business partner, and it would be very strange to say that he knew nothing of these crooked doings and didn't grease his palms a little bit in these transactions. Then we've got Howard Crine, whatever, doesn't matter. His son-in-law married to his daughter Ashley, who started a health investment consulting firm back in 2011, and before they even had a website up, he was invited to the White House and then put on the ticket of all these U.S. Department of Health Services conferences immediately while they had a coming soon website, okay? Then his brother Frank, who made some real estate deals and some solar deals, oddly enough, because we all remember Solyndra, but that's not what this is about, out in Costa Rica after Joe was named point person to Latin America and the Caribbean, whatever, either way. So shortly after Joe was named point person to those island nations, his brother inked real estate deals in Costa Rica and deals for solar panels or something like that. Very peculiar. And then last but not least, his little sister Valerie, who he confused with his wife, banked $2.5 million directly from Joe Biden's 2008 campaign as a consultant. So imagine that. His little sister gets consulting fees directly from his campaign money. And she was working for a company called Joe Slade White and Company, where her and Joe Slade himself were the only two executives on the board. So none of this really adds up. And is any of it, really lock him up stuff? No. But how many grains of sand make a heap? This guy's been in government since the mid-'80s minimum. And we're going to say, yeah, this is the guy we should put in the White House. None of this matters. We just want the orange man out. And again, Bernie, how bad are you to be losing to this corrupt old man? Nobody wants socialism. They would rather have a corrupt old man skimming a little bit off the top of every taxpayer dollar than you, Bernie, who's going to completely demolish the entire U.S. economy. So that's it. That's all I got. Please check back every Wednesday night, every Sunday night, and have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening.